All right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today as we walk through each stage of your GP to cloud journey. And when you decide to make that move, so you have all the information you might need. I'm Kim Anselmo. I'm going to be your monitor today to help with any needs that you might have during the webinar. But our goal is to make sure that you understand how to use the Teams webinar. So just to go over that quickly, you'll see there's an area where you can ask questions, Q&A in the panel. We will be looking at those questions, monitoring. We will hold them till the end of our presentation. And if we don't happen to answer those questions, we'll be sure to reach out to you personally and make sure you get an answer for those as well. At any time, if you want to chat with one of our hosts, you can use the chat icon and either send it directly to our host or other attendees as well. If you do have any issues, there's that raise the hand option. I will come and connect with you right away and make sure that we can get everything back on track. Also, if there's any issues with your audio, you can take a look at using your device settings and toggle between maybe your microphone, your speaker, or your camera and get that working properly as well. So with that, let's jump into today's agenda. So we have several different areas where we're going to take you through your GP journey. So we're going to talk about the storm ahead and what's really happening with Dynamics GP out there today, how to manage your ERP exit strategy, navigate those waters of selecting your right ERP platform. Here's some stories from the sea, those real transitions that our other clients have made where you're sitting today, and also how to prepare your business for that growth forward post your GP platform. So, and as mentioned at the end, we'll save some time for wrap up and Q&A as well. So our learning objectives, just to cover them, will be to understand the risks of staying on Dynamics GP, build a smart ERP exit strategy, and how to choose that right ERP for your business. And with that, I am going to hand it over to today's presenters. We have Jeff Stone, Rebecca Bunis, and Jeremy Sucharski.
Okay, I think this is me. Yeah, you can say here, that's fine too. So anyway, good morning or afternoon, everyone. Most of you in attendance today already realize you probably need to figure out what's next, and that's why you're here. But let's just take a few minutes to go over the latest facts since Microsoft has announced the end of support for GP. So last September of 24, Microsoft made the official announcement for the end of life support for GP. It'll be on December 31st of 2029. So a few more years to go, but these are the key dates to be aware of. So for the modern life cycle, which is the versions 18.2 to 18.7, again, that end of support date is December 31st of 2029. So no more technical support, product support, or updates, which means those upgrade releases, hot fixes, and year-end updates. And then in April 30th of 2031 will be the final security patches that are released, as well as on April 30th of 2031, the Dynamics GP service plan or enhancement plan coverage will end, which also means you will not be able to purchase additional users beyond that date. So one thing to consider as well with that is if you do lapse on your enhancement plan in 29 or even before that, just know that you won't be able to get those final security patches or purchase additional users. And then if Microsoft continues to have any of those promotions to move to Business Central or Dynamics 365 FSC, those would not be available without an enhancement plan. So if you're staying on GP for a while, I'd probably consider staying on that plan just so you make sure you have everything that you need until you move off. And then lastly, on April 30th of 2031 is the GP subscription licenses. So those licenses are typically used by customers that are hosted with a hosting provider. So part of your monthly hosting fees would include that subscription license, and those will end on that date. So you'll no longer be permitted to use the software or in compliance with the license. So very important for those customers that are on subscription license pricing to be off by that April date. And then the end of support for the fixed life cycle, most of those releases are already out of support, both mainstream and extended, with just GP 2018 and 2018 R2 that is still in the extended support through January 11th of 2028. So also just want to mention here, for those customers that do plan to stay on GP to ride it out through 29 or beyond, highly recommend that you are on the latest release of GP at that point in time, have your SQL upgraded, operating system, etc. But with all that said, also want to let you know that, beyond the end of the support date, Armanino is here to support you on your journey and will continue to help with your current Dynamics GP. We have a dedicated GP consultants on staff, and we'll still continue to support as long as we can. And we'll be there to help you to assist for migrating to the cloud when the timing's right for you. All right, Kim, you can go to the next one. The anticipation.
Building.
Okay, so here's what we're calling the top 5 risks of staying on GP, kind of in that mid to long term. So this might be a good slide you can present to your CIO or CFO to help justify starting to jump ship, sooner than later, and start to evaluate that replacement of GP with a cloud-based ERP. So the first one, end of support, increased security risks. As I mentioned on the last slide, that last security updates will be provided on April of 2031. And without security updates, your system becomes a target for cyber attacks. So data breaches, ransomware, compliance failures become real concerns, especially for businesses handling, sensitive financial information. And then number 2, on rising maintenance costs. So maintaining on-premise systems like GP involves ongoing costs. These include hardware upgrades, software upgrades, server maintenance, IT support. Over time, these expenses accumulate, impacting your budget and total cost of ownership over time. So, and additionally, GP consultants will become more limited and expensive to support the outdated ERP, which brings us to the outdated technology, limited scalability. So GP relies on older technology stacks, limiting its ability to keep up with modern business demands. So as technology evolves, GP will struggle to provide that agility, scalability, and user experience that businesses require. So staying on GP means you're missing out on the latest features, security enhancements, and seamless integrations in cloud ERPs. Additionally, on the scalability, as your business grows, GP limitations become more apparent, whether it's adding users, expanding new locations, or integrating with other systems. GP will struggle to scale efficiently and with cloud integrations. And then number 4, AI is the future and here now. So falling behind your competitors. So as businesses move to the cloud ERP systems, they are benefiting from AI-powered analytics for smarter decision-making, real-time financial insights to improve cash flow, and automation to reduce manual work. So while companies on GP could be stuck managing outdated reports and slow processes, they're really losing ground to competitors who can move faster and adapt more easily. And then finally, 5, on talent shortage. Fewer new professionals are trained or experienced on GP. So it's leading to rising costs and limited support resources. As GP fades, so will the pool of professionals who know how to support it. And that could be both internally in your organization and externally. So it just means longer downtimes, higher cost to when issues arise, and hiring GP experienced talent could result in higher salaries and retraining costs. And then also, with other companies that are already on the modern ERPs, they have broader and growing talent pool. So modern systems are more commonly covered in education and training, and easier to find professionals with that relevant cloud experience. And honestly, the new generation of professionals, they just don't want to work for companies that are on outdated software. They want and know the newer cloud technology, such as Intact, Business Central, NetSuite, Workday, and others. All right,
Good stuff,
next,
Rebecca.
I think Jeff's, yeah.
Yeah, no, very good. So before we get into kind of figuring out what's next on your journey, did want to kind of reiterate that it's, we're not saying to panic and jump into something right away. We know this is a process you got to think through, and we're going to help you with that the rest of this hour here. But in the short term, there are some things you can do to even take advantage or mitigate some of those risks that Rebecca was talking about, right? So if you are on premise, this is going to be a year or 2 decision for you to make and migrate. Maybe consider that kind of lift and shift approach. We've helped many companies take their on-premise, move it as is into Azure, not have to worry about maintaining physical servers, updating OSs, things like that. So there's other hosting providers out there as well that specialize in GP, but again, definitely a good idea. If you know, especially you're going to end up with a Microsoft platform, some of those things in Azure you can start expanding upon too. So maybe it's the data and analytics long term that you're thinking about doing. So, you'll have your new system someday, you'll have GP data. What are you going to do with all of it? And if you're already in Azure, it might make it easier to throw some of that into a data lake or warehouse and kind of look at your long-term data and analytics plan now, even before you have your new system in place. Same with just any other extensions that you might be thinking of. Again, your business is going to keep changing. We're not saying stop everything for the next year and wait. If you have a new need that you need something creative for, you want to tap into some AI or Copilot feature, maybe just don't do it embedded in GP with Dex code. Create a Power App that pulls from GP, and then whatever system you have next, you can use that instead and just kind of keep the same front end. So that's kind of the mindset. We help a lot of folks to get from point A to point B without just, hey, you have to wait or you have to rush into the next thing. And that's kind of the last point I had on here was, it's make sure you have the right partner to help you with some of that. We want to, provide that guidance. Again, I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy in a second. He can tell you a little bit more about what you can be doing in the meantime. But I know personally there's a lot of partners out there right now that are trying to minimize their GP staff and move all their clients to BC as fast as possible. You're going to hear this isn't our approach, right? We're here to help you as long as it takes and to get you to whatever the right platform is. It doesn't mean, it has to be BC tomorrow. So I'll let Jeremy talk a little bit more about that, what you guys can be doing in the short term as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. And let's go ahead and jump ahead 2 slides here if we can. Let's talk about how do you start putting your exit strategy together. Now, this is going to be the most no duh kind of slide that we've got today, but a lot of this comes back to the old adage of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you think about I was playing with images for this, thinking about, hey, how do we build our lifeboat? How do we make sure we've got our safety equipment before going, offshore in our lifeboat, things like that. And it really got me thinking that the clients we've seen over our tenure here at the firm do the best job, not only sort of extending GP, but then really thinking about what comes next, whether it was before Microsoft announced an end date or post that announcement, is really thinking through a number of factors of their exit strategy and really taking an opportunity to say this is an inflection point in how your business software is ultimately supporting your business. So if we jump ahead 1 slide here, one thing to think about really at the onset of planning it is to realize it's not an upgrade. This is not as straightforward as, hey, I'm on a prior version, I need to upgrade to the latest version, get my servers patched if I'm still on-prem, etc. But it's really the companies that plan their exit strategy best are using this as an inflection point to think critically about what it is they're trying to accomplish as a business and think critically about how are our business applications going to support that into the future, because our hand is being forced, so to speak, by Microsoft. And again, we're here to help. We have a large footprint of GP clients that we're going to continue to support until ultimately there's no longer a need for it. But the clients that are beginning to think through, hey, where do we need to go? We're strongly encouraging them thinking through very strategically, how do we want this to work? I think a key component of that we see in working with clients on technology road mapping is executive alignment is critical. Understanding what we're trying to achieve as an organization all up, then understanding how that is facilitated through business applications. And more importantly, or of equal importance, is what's coming out the backside of those business applications around analytics, reporting, decision-making support, etc. Using this as an opportunity to define how you're going to interact with your stakeholders in a different and more proactive way is going to allow you to level up your leadership as well, whether you're in accounting, IT, etc. And then, of course, realistic timelines. My dad used to joke with me on home improvement projects. He's like, it's going to take you 3 times as long and twice the cost. Now, certainly we don't want that to be the case for ERP, but being very realistic about, hey, we have our day jobs. A CEO I worked with at a previous organization had a great quote. He always called it their gulp rate. How much could they gulp down given their day-to-day jobs? So thinking about how do we go through this planning process, thinking about the art of the possible, defining an implementation plan, but also understanding you have a business to run as well, and being very, very realistic there. We hit on an earlier slide here. AI is everything. It is the direction of the future, and that future is here already. We're seeing more and more clients, whether it be something that's Copilot oriented, ChatGPT, Grok. It feels like every week, it's a new tool coming out that is better than the last one that we had exposure to. Data is the underpinning of that, though. The more you think proactively about data strategy, we'll talk about that shortly, the better off you're going to be to be ready for taking advantage of these great tools, whether it be through decision support or ultimately moving towards truly agentive AI, which is AI that will be taking actions autonomously based on fact patterns it's seeing. And last but not least, part of the exit strategy has to be thinking holistically. How are we thinking critically about business process? How are we thinking about how IT is going to, the business system is going to enable that? How are we thinking about data? How are we thinking about change management? How is this going to impact people? We went through an ERP implementation internally here at Armanino, and I kind of joked that nobody willingly goes through an ERP implementation. It could be painful. It's a lot of change to choke down, and from that perspective, it is one thinking holistically and thinking about the impact on your team members and thinking about how to communicate that and get them to embrace that change can be one of the key success factors. So if we jump ahead one here, you might be going, hey, Jeremy, I'm with you. What does that look like? What is our roadmap as we cross this divide here from where we're at to where we're going to go? And I'll hit on these. I could talk ad nauseum on every single one of these, but I'll take you through them quickly here. And the first one is go through your assessment. Understand what you're trying to accomplish as a business. Understand where you're going as a business. What are your future plans? How does an exit strategy potentially play into that? That's going to be key in terms of how much time and dollars you want to invest as well. Lay out that plan, and then start thinking about system selection and vendor selection. Not only where are we going to move to, which platform is best for us, but who's the right vendor to support me? I'll say Armanino is phenomenal at this. We're not always the best for everyone. So be thinking very critically about how are you going to have that ongoing support from your vendor post go live. Thinking about data management. Hey, we've got all this historical data. What do we want to do with it? Do we want to bring over opening balances? Do we want to bring over line item details? How do we want to ultimately use our data, not only go forward, but also our historical data as part of that as well? Item number 4 there, right in the middle, might be a touch tough to see because of the glare off the ocean. Change management. How do we get our people to embrace this change and not resist it? Can be one of the most critical factors to success as we think about ERP. Integrations, customizations. Jeff hit on this. Hey, do we want to go out currently build out Dex code, or do we want to do it through a Power App? Thinking holistically about more and more modern systems are getting easier and easier to interact with and to integrate with. So are there other components of your holistic technology stack that need to be interacting on a more proactive basis with your core ERP, whether that be BC, FSC, or something else? Of course, testing, validation, and go live is critical. Post-implementation support, critical as well. Hey, do you have the right resources in-house that have been reskilled, retrained to work with this new platform? Or is this an inflection point? A lot of folks that I've interacted with that are GP professionals are reaching closer to the end of their career, certainly closer to the end of their career than I am. Is this the opportunity for you to be looking at, hey, is this a way do you have talent that is looking to exit the business, to retire, bring in new talent? Or if you've got that talent today, how do you retrain and upskill them so they can be providing that support on a go-forward basis? And then, of course, how do we do ongoing risk management? How do we make sure that we keep things secure, operating in the most effective way available for our teams, et cetera? I know I have a tendency to talk kind of quick, especially in the morning here on the West Coast when I've had a couple cups of coffee. Jeff, Rebecca, anything that you guys would add? I know you've been very much in the weeds of implementing and supporting and selling GP and other systems for years. Anything that you would highlight that I didn't touch on?
I think you nailed it. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. A lot of the folks that have had GP have had it for a decade, right? And it's been set it and forget it in a way. So as we move into something new, even when you get into the post-implementation world, it's going to look a little different. And I'll talk about that later, but it's a constant change now with technology. So thinking about all these things to make the right decision, but then also continuing to have that mindset of, hey, the team that's going to be using this tool is going to have to continue to learn and continue to evolve. It's just a little different maybe than a decade ago when we threw in GP, not expecting it to evolve as much as these products do now.
Yeah, most definitely. Rebecca, how about from your side before we jump ahead one?
Yeah, I think everything you guys have said is spot on. So
Love it. Love
yeah.
it. Well, let's jump ahead a little bit more. So we talked really holistically about, hey, how are you planning for that exit strategy? You know, a lot of the components. Well, then it really comes down to, hey, we know GP has a very finite life now. You know, when Microsoft bought them, it was right on the heels of Oracle buying JD Edwards, and it was kind of an interesting juxtaposition between the two. Hey, they bought these two platforms, and each company sort of in their individual lanes, and hey, they're going to be sunset, and both have carried on for decades. But GP very much is going to be reaching its end of life. So what's the right solution for you? Well, I would tell you hire Armanino, and we'll go ahead and help you define that. So this is going to be a little bit of the, I'm telling you what the Colonel's 11 herbs and spices are here as we dive in, because this is very much how we help our clients determine what is the right roadmap for them. So if we jump ahead one, I would argue break it down into logical buckets here. We talked about this concept of making sure we've got executive alignment. Where are we going as an organization? How do we want our systems to support it? And so certainly these are all components of that, but they can build on each other. The first thing that I would tell you to do, and we'll get into more detail here in a moment, but is what are those baseline requirements? What are the must-haves across my major business processes? You know, my lead to cash process, my procure to pay, if I'm managing fixed assets, you know, inventory, manufacturing, et cetera, and really looking at how you walk those processes end to end and couple process with requirements. That is going to give you the baseline of, can we even just qualify solutions based on requirements we have that they just don't do well against? And so can we narrow the pool from there, drill down a little bit more? Think about your data strategy. We talked about data becoming more and more important, and also because it's not just an upgrade, it truly is a re-implementation. It allows you to do some sort of free range thinking here. What is the art of the possible? If I could start with a blank sheet of paper, what would my reporting look like so I could interact with my business stakeholders in a different way? Of course, automation being a piece of this as well, thinking about not only what can be automated through core ERP or core business systems functionality, but is there a play for RPA, you know, for UiPath, for Power Automate, et cetera, where it fills in the gaps around the ERP? And then, of course, all of these things build into sort of the pinnacle, which is AI enablement and AI enablement. We'll talk a little bit about that. So as we drop down one slide here, let's talk a little bit about how do we arrive at baseline requirements and what do we do with them from there. And again, this is the Colonel's 11 herbs and spices here. Number one, it's that requirements gathering. I would argue it's hand in glove with process and requirements. You can start by saying, what are my requirements and how do they fit into my process? Or you can define your process and have the requirements flush out. I would argue you need both to really come to a truly data-driven, holistic conclusion here. So working through that process, understanding what those requirements are. From there, looking at what is the possibility of vendors. We've got a slide on that here in just a little bit that we're going to talk about who are the different vendors out there. But go out and determine the short list. NetSuite, Acumatica, all these different ones, share those requirements anonymously with them and say, hey, their sales teams are well equipped to do this. We would like you to come back and tell us how you stack rank out of the box plus customizations, and put it in two different columns for determining, ultimately the data coming back feeds into step 3. Let's determine what their capabilities are from there based on their objective review of the requirements I am providing them. If you come in and sort of what I would say blindly say, hey, we want to go do demos with X, Y, or Z vendors, the reason we start with requirements, build into a short list, and ask them to assess themselves against those capabilities are, it helps then also guide the demos that are going to come later. So as we get into step 4, we've determined a short list, we've done the capabilities, perhaps we've filtered out other solutions that just don't really fit well. Typically, I would say 2 to 3 solutions are where you want to land on step 4 and step 5. So if you're looking at it, hey, it might be a BC, a NetSuite, and a Sage Intacct, something to that effect. And then have them come in and use the requirements that you have to give them very specific guidance on, I want you to not demo general functionality. I want you to demo my functionality. How are you going to make me successful as a business? That's going to lead into the last step, which is this holistic vendor comparison. You've got a scorecard, which will allow you to quantify how exactly they stack up relative to what you have defined are your requirements. Then you've also got the other components that what I would say are less quantifiable. How did I feel about the software? How was it to navigate? Was it easier to get to? Is it easier to customize, support? Does it work in my industry? Are there other extensions that I could be adding, et cetera? That will ultimately let you land at that holistic solution. All right, moving along here as we jump ahead one slide. Once you've got that that baseline requirements done, the next thing we talked about was, what about data? And we hit on briefly, and I could again talk ad nauseum about this as well, about how important data is becoming more so than ever. A lot of organizations want to jump right to, hey, I'm referencing the graphic on the right of your screen here. We want to jump right to prescriptive analytics. Tell me exactly what to do. Well, the reality is there's this maturity curve that you're going to have to work through, and thinking about objectively where you're at versus where you'd like to be in the level of investment to get there. This idea of moving from descriptive into diagnostic to predictive into prescriptive is an incremental way to be thinking about not only what is the value of that data, but also what is the complexity that comes with it. So thinking about, do I even have reporting today that I can carry forward that tells me what happened to my business? Or that would really be descriptive, or what happened and why, which would be getting into more of your diagnostic. Predictive is going to take it a step forward and start to give you alerts going, hey, we're predicting something is going to be had. MRP has been around for years and does this really, really well. But other pieces of your data, thinking about how is it going to predict what's happening. And more importantly, where AI is taking us to is this top tier here around being prescriptive. This is really where agentive AI sits. It is not only going to look at and predict what's happening, but it's either going to tell you what to do, or more importantly, it's just going to go do it for you. Hey, I think we're running short of supply stock, so I'm going to go ahead and trigger an order to bring in more components to make sure we have them on the shelf, et cetera. So thinking through where you land on the spectrum, how it's going to support you. And then on the left, just some things for you to consider. I won't drain the swamp on it, but a lot of clients mix these two terms up, governance versus strategy. Strategy is really what you want to accomplish with your data, and it couples right in with this spectrum, this maturity curve that I just described. Thinking critically about what we want to achieve with it or what we want to accomplish is different than how we manage it, and being thoughtful about how that fits into your strategy of, okay, we want to go do all these other things, but then there's going to be a component of how do I manage it on the back end as well? What's the skill set, et cetera?
Hey, Jeremy, on that one, I had a recent example just the other day. So they were, hey, we've got all these reports we need to recreate in the new system. And we said, well, why? What are you doing with them? What are these 20 different things that you're exporting to Excel? And like, well, we're trying to figure out, the customers that used to buy from us every 3 months, but now they haven't bought in 9 months, or their rates went down. I'm like, how about we just give you that? How about we just spit out what you're really looking for? So that's the whole predictive, prescriptive, I think, just a different way of
100%.
thinking about it. And it's super important when we're trying to go to a new system and to not, recreate what you had before.
100%. No, and you're spot on in getting to that point of being able to have it prescriptive and predictive and build into prescriptive, certainly can be challenging. But again, when we're starting with we're not just doing an upgrade, we truly are, we've got this license to go look at the business and think about how do we want to engage differently. You might be able to accelerate to prescriptive analytics far faster than if you were, for lack of a better term, handcuffed by what you have today. All right, let's jump ahead one more here. Let's talk a little bit more about automation. You'll see here as a former ERP implementer and now management consultant, I love frameworks. So anytime you can give me a maturity curve, I'm going to smile. And so talking a little bit here about AI and automation as well. Just another perspective for you to be thinking about as you go through baseline requirements and select a system, and then think about your data strategy, and now start to think about how do we automate and make our people more productive. Well, some of the ways to think about it are through sort of a progressive tiered approach here, with it being, on the lowest end, hey, how do we have general productivity boosting? I think a lot of us are using Copilot, ChatGPT for routine tasks, helping to write emails, summarize meetings, things like that. These are tools that everyone's using. Well, from there, can we start to be looking at, as we implement a new ERP, can we be working with this platform with these tools to have more request-driven tasks, where, hey, we give it a request and it kicks off a task for us. Go do X, Y, or Z. Go reconcile my bank transactions, et cetera, et cetera. From there, we hit on this a little bit more in the last slide. AI boosted decision making. This is really where it ties into that prescriptive layer that we were describing as well. Hey, can you be using machine learning and more complex AI models to give me new insights to my business I might not have been able to get to otherwise, or may have taken longer to get to? And ultimately, agentive is that new term that everybody's talking about these days, which is where it takes action directly on the data that you have without human intervention. It's very much, I use the term, if you're a child of the 80s like me, you watch Terminator 2, and it's when Skynet became self-aware. It's when the system will take action in the absence of human intervention. All right, let's jump ahead here. And this is where I'm really curious to tag in Rebecca and Jeff as well. What's the right solution here? You know, the natural successor, a lot of folks think, hopefully you recognize these logos. It's BC, it's FSC. Hey, I've been on the Microsoft stack for years. Is Business Central the right solution? Is it Dynamics Finance or Supply Chain? And certainly these could be a great solution for you. It is in many cases a logical jump to say, hey, I'm moving from one Microsoft product to the next, but maybe I'll ask Jeff and Rebecca to share their perspective since they've been in the Microsoft ecosystem for so long as well. Natural successor or look outside the four walls of Microsoft? What do you guys think?
I mean, it's not we'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, but it's not a definite has to be anymore. All the different products integrate well with the rest of the Microsoft stack at this point. So I know you have a few others that could be in the mix as well, and Rebecca and I will talk about some of them. But again, like I said earlier, you shouldn't feel like you're getting forced into one of these. If it's the right move, awesome. If there's something else that makes more sense for you guys, different industries, accelerators, things like that, should keep your options open, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, for some GP clients that have already, moved off to other systems, they've done everything, right? I mean, from Business Central to FSC to Workday to Intact to NetSuite to specialized systems, maybe around real estate, right? I mean, we've kind of seen it all in Sage Intact. I don't remember if I said that one or not, but obviously Intact too. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really just is going to, depend on what's going to make most sense for your business.
Most definitely. Well, if we jump ahead, you've already kind of hit on some of these, Rebecca, but to your point, I think these are ones that collectively we've seen be in the mix in addition to BC and FSC. And I know a lot of organizations, they'll say, hey, we want to standardize on Microsoft because of a platform play. Hey, we want to have the ERP plus Power Platform plus Power BI because we know that those tools are inherently built to interact really, really well together. But I would say it's looking at the requirements and thinking too about what fits for your industry. One that we see a lot as a Sage Intacct provider, which Rebecca, I know you work with clients like this, is Sage is great for not-for-profit organizations. You don't have inventory, your accounting is a little more straightforward. And so Sage Intacct can be a good fit. One that I stumped the team here with was in the lower right there is Odoo. It's one that I'm starting to see come up now. It's an open source platform, good in the manufacturing space. Not one I came across maybe 12 months ago. So, others that are out there, NetSuite, Workday, et cetera, all good options. And again, thinking through not only what your baseline requirements are, but how do these guys play in your industry as well? Do they have solutions that fit? Rebecca mentioned real estate. Yardi would be one you might throw on here as a very real estate specific solution as well. So thinking through not only your requirements, but industry as well. All right, well, I'm going to hand it back to Jeff here. Everything I shared was more in the art of the possible. What's your strategy? Well, what's really worked? And Jeff, I know you're in the weeds with clients doing this every day. So why don't you take it over?
Yeah, I mean, between Rebecca and I, we've helped a lot of folks. We've probably done dozens of these, even in the last year, GP to some other ERP system. So we want to share a few stories around kind of some of the targets that we landed on. And even before that, just a couple general topics, I guess, Rebecca, if you want to hit those.
Yeah, so kind of just wanted to share a couple of, common themes from clients, unique learnings maybe that may resonate with some of you and kind of help getting, thinking about some of these gotchas before you even get started. So a couple of common challenges here that we have heard from our GP clients, right, that have moved to a new ERP are around the chart of accounts and smart lists. So, GP account segments are pretty static. Most modern ERPs utilize the concept of dimensions, financial dimensions. So it basically provides more flexibility to what information is tagged with each GL transaction and allows for quicker GL, historical GL reporting and separating the ledger and subledger. As most of you probably know, GP's chart of account is fairly rigid and it grows exponentially with business complexity, where dimensional accounting is more modern, it's simpler to manage and just better suited for detailed reporting and analytics. So for many accountants that have been out there using GP for 10, 20 years, right, it may take some time to sort of wrap your brain around and design a new structure from the start. So the good news is that Armanino We'll address we'll address this with chart of account workshops at the start of a project to make sure that the core of the system is really well thought out. And it's typically tough to change after importing data and starting to use the new system. And then secondly is around smart lists, right? Everyone loves their smart list. So one recurring thing that we've kind of heard from the GP users is the use of GP smart lists, which, as you know, are great for quick, personalized, on-the-fly reporting. And what are they going to use in this new ERP? So the good news is that E1's PopDoc is smart lists for the cloud and works with other cloud ERPs, some of the ones that we've mentioned already: Business Central, Finance Supply Chain, Sage Intacct, NetSuite, Acumatica, and also other cloud applications outside of the ERP, maybe a Salesforce or a Zendesk. So PopDoc also allows for migration and legacy data with virtual integration. In virtual integration, you can embed data from one application to another application. So a very cool way to use this is to access your GP data when you move to a new ERP. So for example, if you move to Business Central, PopDoc gives you those smart lists inside Business Central, and it also lets you access your historical Dynamics GP data. So many GP clients already own E1 Smart List Builder or Smart View. And if you do, you likely have already transitioned to PopDoc with your past E1 renewal. So when you do move to a new ERP, your existing Smart List Builder or Smart View license, now PopDoc, will likely work with that new ERP to provide you those smart lists that you love in GP. Still have that. Okay, I think next slide. I think Jeff, maybe yeah.
Yeah. So again, another kind of general topic before we get into some real stories is just making sure that you are thinking about the project the right way. So we talked on this a little bit. Jeremy hinted on some of it and my topic earlier about having the right partner. But if anyone's kind of telling you it's going to be a quick upgrade and a side project, you probably want to run away from them. Whether it's 3 users going into Intacct or 300 users going into FSC, we have this methodology. Most partners will have something like this. These plan, discover, build, test. Where I think are a little unique is we actually have entire stages called adopt and evolve, where we're really focused on the post go live and making sure people get into the system and get used to it and evolve it going forward. I did want to say though that GP is so unique because there's so many different types of organizations using it. Like you said, we have the nonprofits, we have manufacturing companies, and I had a client who they did basically medical research, and their bill of materials was cadavers, and the human body was their bomb, right? So there's always going to be that one unique thing, and this is kind of what Jeremy was hinting at. Just make sure that you're in that plan stage. You're really looking at the unique parts of your business. You don't need to worry about your AP payment terms. All these systems are going to have the ability to configure your number of days and rate and whatever, those types of things in the system. Really focus on what's unique to your business to help to make sure early on that you have the right system chosen. And along with these plan, discover, build, you need to have some sort of iterative approach to this too. I mean, we have seen people that have jumped into Workday or FSC and they said, I think this is the system for me. They start configuring and they say, time out, we're missing something. There's a better option for our industry. So if you're getting that kind of MVP quick view of things with your data, your processes early on, that's huge. So when you're looking for a partner, make sure they're not going to just build the whole thing, give it to you at the end, and you're stuck holding it whether you like it or not. So that just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. I think it's super important to have a plan and a little bit of flexibility within it from a partner that's worked in your industry before. All right, so let's talk probably the one you weren't expecting to hear about first. It is how we help people move from GP to Intacct, Rebecca.
Yep. Yeah. So, Jeremy had mentioned a couple of the target systems, and we've been mentioning earlier, right? So let's explore some scenarios here, some real scenarios. So for GP to Sage Intacct, we find that nonprofits are the most common, and multi-entity customers needing that multi-entity are probably the most common reasons to move to Sage Intacct. So with Intacct, project teams are going to be a bit smaller, are going to be expected, right? Others may have some stretched resources, and mostly will be working with Armanino on top of their day jobs, which Jeremy kind of referenced a little bit earlier as well. So also with the open APIs available, it really allows for easier integration. So many clients will utilize Armanino's Cloud Sync integration packs. You may have Concur or Workday Adaptive, Salesforce, Blackline, right, to help integrate those systems to Intact, or really other ERPs as well that we'll touch base on too. But so multi-entity is native in Intact. It also has very strong financial reporting, consolidations, and dashboards. And there'll be more AI capabilities coming. There are AI capabilities in Sage Intact today, but recently at the Sage conference earlier this month, they have announced some more AI capabilities coming. So implementations are typically going to be kind of in that 3 to 5 month time frame. So for nonprofits, some common themes of success that we've heard from our clients are really around that improved visibility and reporting. So before on GP, may have lacked some flexibility for nonprofit reporting around grants and fund tracking. After Sage Intact, it's provided them with those real-time dashboards and compliance-friendly fund reporting. And then as a result, it's enabled more timely board reporting and better donor stewardship. And then for multi-entity, before with GP, it tended to be hard to handle sort of the growing multi-entity needs without workarounds, and then just the lack of intercompany. After implementing Sage Intact, right, they've managed over dozens or more entities with automated intercompany eliminations and consolidations. And as a result, they've saved hundreds of hours of annually, in manual work. Okay, I think next slide.
Very cool.
Okay.
All right, so kind of on the other extreme, my life before consulting was I worked for a construction company. We had GP, and I helped them to move over to the Dynamics AX platform, which was the predecessor to what's now FSC. And we had 5 entities, multiple countries. It was about a 18-month project to get all of our GP users into this new system at the time. And it was so painful and hateful that I decided to make that my career and keep doing it over and over after that in the consulting world. But so yeah, this is kind of where my passion is around the AX side. And what we see a lot is in this area, it's going to be your larger companies that either already have 20 users or more, or they know they're going to get there at some point, right? So the FSC platform is super robust. I mean, we've helped, when I was doing it with the GP clients, many add-on ISV products can just be completely eliminated, right? So if you had a GP with a warehouse management system attached to it, the FSC platform now has a full mobile app and warehouse management, advanced lot picking, anything you could think of. They've purchased advanced revenue recognition modules recently. They've purchased entire different quality management modules. So they've kind of picked and choose the different ISVs over the last 5-10 years, sucked them into the product, and now that product is so robust out of the box that most people are using very few add-ons. So that can be a huge incentive if you're currently using all kinds of different best-in-breed systems. Maybe you don't have to anymore. Maybe you want to still for your LIMS system for your life science lab or whatever it is. There's always a use for that. But those are the types of considerations early on with these FSC projects that are super important to figure out, because there are going to be opportunities to streamline systems even and integrations. Obviously, there's multiple language packs and employee and vendor portals. So this is the bigger of the options for your enterprise level Microsoft solution, continuing to evolve every quarter. Basically, now they have releases. It used to be monthly. They've kind of streamlined that. But once you get into this type of system, you're going to be forced to take at least 2 updates a year. You're going to have multiple environments and test environments, and to manage these enterprise level systems. And just again, the implementation time is going to be a little bit longer, but we have seen it be a really good tool for, especially like I said, the companies that are growing. Maybe they don't use all those modules yet, but they know they're going to. We do a lot of work with life sciences and FDA regulated organizations. They have to have certain compliance in place. Maybe they don't even have supply chain yet. They are a pre pre-commercial pharmaceutical company that's still trying to figure out, are we going to build this, or produce this in-house, or are we going to use a contract manufacturer? Either way they go, they know this solution will be flexible enough for them to keep building onto it. So we do see lots of phased approaches. If you're, for some reason, earlier on in your GP life cycle still, you went to it more recently and you're a growing company, something like FSC has been really good for folks that want to get the right system that can expand with them. And honestly, a 20 user minimum isn't too hateful. Again, there's pieces of this too that can be done outside the system, like we talked about earlier. A lot of people will use that Power Platform, extend things like I don't know, expense processing, other areas where maybe the tool itself can be used, or you can even build around it. A couple other considerations on this, just I could talk about this one all day. When you move to a product like this, and most of the SaaS products, you're not going to be able to just hit the database and hit the file servers anymore. So even going from like the predecessor, that AX system I talked about, if that's on premise and now you're going to FSC in the cloud, you can't have those jobs that just update data in the database as easily or throw a file on the server to be processed. Now, again, we've worked through this over the years, and the solutions are to use more API calls and have a file server in Azure that's sitting next to it. It's all done so that it's more secure and that the product can be updated more easily. It can be backed up, and you have all that data retention. But it does present some different challenges that maybe you don't have today with GP, where you can just create an integration that's a SQL Server job, hitting the tables directly. So that's probably true for all these SaaS platforms. I wanted to mention that because especially with these larger ones, there usually are integrations like that we have to redesign a little bit as well. All right, so that's kind of the smallest and the biggest. How about something in the middle, Rebecca?
All right, it's Business Central. So wrapping up with Business Central. Yeah, so BC is probably the more common target, right, from GP. But as we discussed earlier, a lot of options out there, and we've had our GP clients move to pretty much every sort of available system out there, it seems like. So, but with GP or with Business Central, there is no minimum users, unlike finance supply chain. So, I mean, you could have one user on BC if that's all you need. But BC does provide a very solid manufacturing platform, also has native integration with Microsoft tools like Power BI and Teams, Office, and Outlook. But unlike Sage Intacct, it does not have multi-entity as a native. So it does require an add-on for Business Central with binary stream. And then Solver's kind of been a preferred advanced reporting solution as well. So customers that have moved to Business Central, some common sort of success stories that we've heard are a lot of them are around just that improved mobility and remote access, right? Being in the cloud, the reduced IT infrastructure costs, faster reporting and better decision making due to the real-time data available, easier integrations, especially with those Microsoft tools. And it's a scalable platform, right? It supports their growth, expansion, and just has more of that modern user expectations. And also the workflows out of the box with BC, much easier and better. So, customers that have moved, they've really noted that it saved a lot of time and reduced costs, just obviously by not having to manage those on-premise upgrades with GP anymore, installing software on, computers and laptops. They really have a strong foundation for continued growth. And, for those that do need to still kind of access that ISV community for add-ons, Business Central and the marketplace, very strong ISV community. A lot of the same ones that were with GP, are available on Business Central if that is needed as well. To Jeff's point, kind of finance supply chain, more that enterprise level. There is more available all within, the FSC product line. Business Central still find, we're going to be adding on some of those third-party products to sort of round out whatever, may be needed. But within Business Central, certainly more functionality, better functionality in certain areas, workflows, obviously the integration with all, Power BI, Teams, Office, Outlook are just huge advantages, time savers. Customers love that within Business Central. And then I think just kind of in general, really across sort of all platforms, right? Moving to the cloud, some other areas that we've heard, some success stories from clients are around the close time. So before, using GP, your close time could be 10 to 15 days. Now it's down maybe 3 to 7 days. Reporting, right, was manual, delayed. Now it's, real-time dashboards. Infrastructure, obviously server on-prem servers, now, fully cloud-based. And even audit prep, was much more manual effort in GP, getting ready for an audit, where with these cloud-based solutions, there's just more of an automated audit trail. And then productivity, before on GP often could be, more reactive tasks, where today, moving to these modern cloud solutions, you can have just more, strategic analysis. And then,
Very cool.
it didn't hit on this before, but yeah, and then typical implementation timeline for Business Central is probably going to be in that 4 to 12 month time frame, really depending on scope. Obviously, if you're doing manufacturing, going to be on the longer side. If you're looking more at core financials, be on that shorter side.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to finish us up with just a few thoughts on the post go live. So for whatever you get yourself into, we kind of talked about this earlier. It's not going to be set it and forget it anymore. These products are evolving frequently. New functionalities getting added, new AI capabilities, lots of cool stuff. So I've actually been kind of emceeing a webinar series lately called Adopt and Evolve to talk about how we help our clients. So I want to go over a little bit what this things you can be thinking about to even beyond the go live. And the first thing is, how are you going to own this system? So we do something called a solution ownership workshop around the time when you start testing whatever you're putting in, to really think through, well, what are all those things that have to happen, ongoing, managing the security, adding users, taking those updates, whatever it is, you may not have to do all this, right? So your partner can take over with a lot of this, or you may want to learn how to do it. So a good thing to be thinking about during the project, so you can get it closed successfully, work with your partner to understand who's going to be doing what after go live, and just make sure you have those plans in place. These are the types of questions you should be asking to make sure, once the project's over, how you're going to have to manage it, or what the expectations are post go live there. The next one is really more about the expectations of what it's going to be like when you go live with a new system, and if you haven't done that for a decade. So we've got, you can keep going, Kim. What we like to call the different kind of stages of post go live. And the first one, you can think of that as kind of like the stabilize, and then you got optimize, maximize, right? So you're going to have that hand holding, just users that aren't quite confident clicking that button the first time after go live, right? So whether you call it hypercare or whatever you want to call it, the key point here is make sure your implementation partner is not disappearing at go live. There's going to be some of those 10% of the use cases you didn't think about that come up in those next 30 days. Maybe it's not even just the first month end close, but the second month end close. It's a big deal when you go to a new ERP system. So you got to make sure you have the right help in place for weeks or months to come. The people that have been helping you, whether it's internally or externally, you got to make sure that they're going to be sticking around, so that you can get through that stabilized phase and move into the optimized stage. No matter what platform you go to, no matter how well you define your requirements, you're going to start to build a wish list along the way of things you also wish you wanted or saw, and it's going to be important to manage that scope, get to your go live, and then figure out, let the dust settle, and then figure out how to keep enhancing it. So again, you need an approach to that. You need to continue to have change management and other facets in place to be able to understand, hey, should we build this new thing that was on our wish list, or is that coming in the next quarterly release of FSC, right? So you got to have that guidance. You have to have people that are helping you out, whether it's your partner internally, continuing to be like the champions of the technology to really help guide your business as it keeps evolving. All right, so the last thing is really around the fun stuff, right? So this goes hand in hand, but Jeremy mentioned this a little bit, Rebecca did. There are so many cool things you can be doing with the systems now and new ways of thinking about things and automating. And this came from I don't know, a few hour workshop with one of our clients that had been live. Actually, I think it was a change of partner that they came to us. We started to talk to them about the system they had in place, getting it stabilized. And within hours, we identified, a couple dozen opportunities to do some cool things with AI, process automation, better reporting. Again, you're not going to go and just do all these things. You got to evaluate the ROI, but it's a green. I want you to be thinking that this is kind of an opportunity to do something new, not just do what you've been doing, right? So that's the key aspect of this. You may not get it all done in the implementation, but if you're thinking about it early on, this will also keep the momentum going after go live. If you are setting yourself up to someday have this AP automation solution in place, even if your team knows it's not there day one, if it's on the radar, you can get there more easily in the new platform. Hopefully you keep that energy going with your project team and your organization for years to come. All right. I think, Jeremy, we hit it all, and we've got a couple minutes left. I have not been looking at any Q&A or anything, but anything else we wanted to hint on today?
Yeah, I would just remind the audience, if you've got questions, drop it in that Q&A. There was one question, which was, will we have access to the slideshow? I already see a response from one of our team members saying, yes, that we will. And so certainly, I believe it's not only the content, but the recording as well. So if you've got other questions, we'll wait another minute or so, and please drop them in the Q&A.
I see what percentage of GP customers are on we'll say an older version. And is it any easier or harder? I honestly don't think it will matter too much which version you're on at this point. I mean, if you've been able to make it work sticking on an older version, I'm sure there's some risk you've taken to get to that point, but the GP data model hasn't evolved that much. We've done so many of these from different versions that we've got templates and starting points to help get you from GP, get the data out, and then obviously whatever the target system is. The bigger factor is more of how much else have you built around your GP system, the integrations, the access databases that people still have that are hitting it directly, right? Those are all the things that are really the complexity factors, I think.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah,
and depending on the timing of when you're looking to do it, I mean, take that money and invest it in a new ERP versus an upgrade, right? Upgrading from 2016 to 18.7, depending on your configuration, number of companies, third parties, ISVs, all that, I mean, it's a hefty lift, right? So, take that money and put it into that new ERP. But if you're going to stay on GP, for 5 more years, then I would say upgrade, get current for sure before you make that lift. But if you have plans to do it, in the next year or so, then yeah, it's not going to make a difference being on 2016 or 18.7 for moving to a new cloud, ERP.
All right. With that, Kim, I think we'll hand it back to you to wrap us up and close us out.
Absolutely. Rebecca, Jeff, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining today. Again, if you do have any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat, put them in the question box. We will get out to you personally and answer those for you. But we look forward to hearing what your next steps are on this journey that you're ahead for moving from GP to that next solution. So thank you everyone for joining. Please take a moment to fill out our survey at the end. Let us know what we can bring to you to help you make this decision even easier for you.
And Kim, the recording will be made available, correct? We'll have that recording in the
Yes, both the recording and the slides will be available 72 hours after this event. So you will get them emailed to you, but we'll also always have them on our website as well.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you everyone for attending.
All right. Thanks everybody. Bye.